Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for the segment, we have Ethan Rose, Assistant Director at Predictit, the stock market of politics, to discuss what the stock market for politics is pricing in for key GOP primaries in Pennsylvania, Nebraska, and Florida. Ethan, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And we'll start with Pennsylvania, which is such an interesting race because while Dr. Oz received endorsement from former President Trump, there's a number of Republicans coming out and publicly speaking against him.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. Trump endorsed Dr. Oz a couple of weeks ago, and we saw and Predictit he surged into frontrunner status pretty immediately, and polling does reflect that. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Now, we've seen some of Trump's endorsements get some pushback from the right before. None of them have gotten pushback like this. Conservatives, a lot of staunch conservatives are really balking at Dr. Oz. There's a television personality who in the past has taken some liberal positions on everything from, fiscal policy to culture war issues. Now, a lot of those conservatives, a lot of the more establishment conservatives are supporting hedge fund manager David McCormick. And then you have a few far-right conservatives who are supporting Kathy Barnett. For a while, it really looked like this was a race between Oz and McCormick, but the two have gotten so negative on each other that it's given room for a third person like Barnett to rise. And we're seeing that in polling. She had what many referred to as a very good debate performance the other night, and polling reflects that a lot of those conservatives who were very skeptical of Dr. Oz, likewise very skeptical of David McCormick, are coming around to Barnett. So this is one to watch. This is a real three-person race. There's a lot of support for all three people and a lot of detractors for all three people.
Right. And if we take a look at the Nebraska governor race, I mean, that's a neck and neck one.
Yeah, that is. So this is one where we have a similar dynamic where you have a Trump endorsement against a candidate who some people find to be maybe a little bit repulsive, Charles Herbster, in part because he was accused of groping and other forms of misconduct. On the other hand, you have James Pillen, who was endorsed by the sitting Nebraska governor and a lot of the local Nebraska and Nebraska County GOP establishment. Predicted traders really think that this one is neck and neck. They have it priced at 47 to 46 with a third candidate, State Senator Brett Lindstrom, at 10%. But in the battle between Herbster and Pillen, this, as we've seen elsewhere, this is more than just about these two. This is also a battle between a big national figure like Trump wading in against, established local brands. This is happening tomorrow night. This is going to be one that a lot of people are watching very closely. It's going to resonate elsewhere in Georgia, Alaska, elsewhere where we see dynamics like this.
And if we take a look at the Florida race, this one's interesting because I think out of all of the polls that I have discussed with you and John on these segments, DeSantis leading there is probably the widest margin out of anyone we've ever covered.
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is getting a lot of national media attention, in part because DeSantis is taking steps to get a lot of national media attention. Now, there hasn't been a Democratic primary yet, so there are two main candidates who are vying to face DeSantis, Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried. Both of them are coming around to this attack line on DeSantis that he is so interested in raising his national profile ahead of 2024, where he's viewed as a viable presidential contender, that he's overstepping on certain national culture war issues at the expense of actually governing the state. We've seen this with, the quote unquote "don't say gay" bill, which is what Democrats call an education bill. We've also seen this with alleged missteps regarding Disney's tax status. But just from our pricing, I would just point out that despite the national attention and despite this decently compelling storyline, predicted traders are very skeptical that DeSantis is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Ethan, what's so interesting, whether it's DeSantis, and I would venture to say it's out of both parties, there's so much virtual signaling going on. I can't remember hearing about actual policy or direction they want to put the country in, whether it's around gender, whether it's around abortion. I mean, we're debating these issues and not thinking about policy and moving forward. Who knows?
Oh, I 100% agree. And on that note, if I could just say one more thing, going back to Pennsylvania, there's some question. I know a lot of Republicans are concerned that their candidates, and I know this is a concern on the Democratic side too, but a lot of Republicans are concerned that the candidates who are the front runner for governor in the Republican side in Pennsylvania, and Kathy Barnett on the Senate side, are leaning so far into these culture war issues in order to appeal to the primary voters that they're actually unelectable in the general election. So you see Doug Mastriano in the gubernatorial race right now has a pretty decent lead according to polling. A lot of Republicans are panicked by this. They think that the governor's office in Pennsylvania, that's a race that they can win, but they are very skeptical that he could win it for them. And so, in a state like Pennsylvania, that's 50-50, there's a lot of concern about what this primary process is doing to their chances of winning.
Yeah, well, that's a great point that you make. And again, to both sides, it seems to be that very vocal minority that is making the waves, and it's not helping us progress as a country overall. But we'll discuss that debate at another time. Ethan, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you for having me.